it's a new year for you. You have new classes, friends, clubs, and practices. This is exciting until you find yourself overwhelmed and behind. Stress increases. You rush things. And you start to feel like you have no time on your hands. As a junior in college, I've always wanted to focus on having fun and just forgetting about my assignments. Some days I'd rather wait until the day it's due. But unfortunately, this method isn't sustainable and it's not going to get you to be successful. As nice as it is just to be hanging out with your friends, academics is the most important. If you're struggling with an overwhelmed schedule and you have trouble with allocating your time, you've came to the right place. Here's how. Lesson 1. Put in time blocks for your classes, sleep, and practice times. You can use Google Calendar, Apple Calendar, whatever calendar app you use. Put in the time blocks of when you have class, the ideal sleep time, and when you have practices. So why do you do this? Well, these 3 things are the main important priorities that you have to do in school, because practices are mandatory, classes are semi-mandatory, but at least for college, but in high school, you have to go to them. And if you miss class, you don't even know what's going on, and you won't be able to do your homework as well as you should have. Plus, sleep is very important. So make sure you get 8 hours, okay? 8 hours is the minimum. If you don't get at least 8 hours or enough quality sleep, you're more likely to get injured or perform poorly. Plus, I know you have experienced this yourself, but whenever you don't get enough sleep, you just feel fatigued. You kind of feel like you don't know what's going on. Well, that's because you didn't get enough sleep. So if you want to learn better, you're gonna have to sleep more. Lesson 2. Add in study/academic times, extracurriculars, and meal times. So once you optimize the essential tasks, you have to add in these other tasks as well. Because 1, you have to study. 2, you have to eat. Of course, each day might be different, especially if you have different classes per day. You might have 3 classes a day, or 2, or even 1 or 0 if you're lucky. But also, the course load can vary. Some classes are more heavy. Sometimes you have to prepare for a test or a quiz. So it depends. But the main thing is having a scheduled time block of when you'll do the homework, when you'll study, and kind of like the ideal schedule of how many hours you want to study, and also figure out what you want to study during those times. Because if you don't have time to do work for your classes, you'll be behind, and that is not optimal for your academic success. A great thing about having academic blocks is it forces you to do the work, because if you don't have this time, when else are you going to do it? So for meals, I know some athletes out there, or people in general, forget to eat meals when they're stressed and they're super indulged in their work. Personally, for me, I don't have that problem, but some people do. So a good thing to decide is what you're going to eat, where you're going to eat, just to prevent decision fatigue. So you either decide go to a dining hall, you meal prep, or you just cook a meal that you already know what you want to cook. So the last thing is extracurriculars, which means clubs, sports, and hanging out with people. Sports as in intramural sports, of course. That's like, I know some athletes out there do other sports like flag football or whatever, but you get the point. So these are the last things that you will add, because these are the most flexible. Personally, I like to hang out for at least once a week with my friends, just because that's all I can spare. For club events, that varies. Sometimes we have 2 events a month, but it's not that frequent, and usually I have time to spare for that. However, when your season starts, your time just diminishes. You don't have a lot of time, your time becomes constricted, and you're gonna have to make a lot more sacrifices when you're in season. But if you have to work and your college or finances rely on that work, just work. Maybe you have to work more on the weekends, but if you're just working for fun, just cut it off, or at least decrease your hours. If you have to work because of financial reasons, just keep it the same. I think that work is more important than social life. It's kind of more in the essential part, but that really depends on the person of why they're working, if you understand that. Lesson 3, try it out for a week and then adjust. So you created a schedule, but guess what? Days are not always set. Maybe you find yourself doing a task longer, but the length of doing that task is every day, like studying or doing homework. If it's just one day thing where you just have to shift your time, that's okay. You don't really have to adjust for that. But it's more of just a pattern, right? If you see Monday through Friday, you have to spend a lot more time on your academics, then you might have to increase that block, decrease another time block somewhere else. I know some days for athletes, your practice times just get over schedule. That's something that's kind of hard to account for. But I mean, if your coach tells you like, hey, we're gonna be going overtime this day, like before you actually go to practice, then that can be helpful too. But like that thing shouldn't really change your schedule overall. It's just like a 1 day thing or maybe a 1 week thing. If it is a 1 week thing, then you can adjust it in your calendar. But if it's just a once a month thing, then it's not that important to adjust. But there's a lot of things that can change. So if you find yourself spending more time on a task, then adjust it. So then when your week comes, you know that you can spend more time on this. But remember this, change is inevitable. How you respond to change dictates your ability to prosper in the future. Lesson 4, optimize your work by eliminating multitasking and distractions. So let me ask you this. If your academic time always goes over the schedule, are you really optimizing your productivity? Ideally, the maximum hours you spend on academics per day, like homework or studying, should be around 3 to 4 hours. Of course, you can work more on weekends, but during the weekdays, 3 to 4 hours is the maximum. So ask yourself this, are you optimizing your work time? Are you on your phone every 5 minutes, watching a show on Netflix or YouTube videos on the side? Because guess what? Those things are actually diminishing your productivity. You're dispersing your energy into different irrelevant tasks, which means that your energy that you can put into the task that is actually the most important, it's not there. You think you can get more done by multitasking, but your energy is dispersed, so the quality of your work decreases and the time you spend on a task or each task increases. I don't need to pull up research for this. You can try it yourself, multitask, see how long it takes for you to get it done, and see if the quality is there. From what I found when I tried this myself was I found myself spending more time on the task. And that's not really good if you're very constrained with your time blocks. So something I did to help me with this, which you can also do yourself, is I threw my phone in a different room. I put it in a different room, shut it, and then I just went back to my work. Of course, you can also put it on airplane mode or just turn it off all the way, but the main point is just putting it in a different room. You don't want to see it. You don't want to have easy access to it because sometimes you have that urge to just grab it because you're bored or you're stressed out and you just want to distract yourself from finding out how to do the work. The routine for me that I do when I have to go deep into work or have deep work, throw my phone away, maybe just throw out the window, but not put it out the window, but put it in a different room, bring in hot tea or water, close the door, jot down the task that I have to do. Ideally, it'll be ready there, but if I have to, I jot down the more tasks I have to do and then rank them by relevance. You might ask yourself, hey Kensei, can I listen to music? Well, personally for me, what I found is if I have to read or write something, my brain just becomes jumbled and I can't actually get my thoughts across. So what I like to do when I have to do those tasks, like if I have to study, read, write, I don't listen to music. Silence is enough for me. Unless if it's like a noisy area, then I put in noise canceling headphones, but usually cafe vibes is okay. It's just like music, I just can't concentrate with music. If it's like math problems or revising work or kind of forming ideas for a project, then music is great for me. I feel pumped up, kind of get a main character feel, cringy as hell, I know. It kind of makes you feel uplifted, motivated to actually figure out the solution. And I found myself more productive if I listen to music. So you can try it out yourself, see if you actually like music during that kind of work or what type of work you do. I mean, maybe some people are different from me, but personally, I don't like to listen to music if I have to write or read, and I'd like to listen to music for anything else. The final lesson, if it all fails, you're going to have to drop something. if you maximize your productivity and you're doing what I'm doing, and your essential tasks or other tasks are going over schedule, or the big thing, you're not getting enough sleep, you are going to have to drop something. And you know what that's called? Sacrifice. Sounds scary, but it is needed. If your goal is to become the best athlete and the most studious student out there, you're going to have to drop something. Especially if you're not getting enough sleep. Sleep is the most important thing you can do for your mind and your athletic performance. So if you're not getting enough sleep because a bunch of other things are just getting in the way, you're going to have to sacrifice. See, for me, freshman year, I had to be an antisocial butterfly because I wanted to sleep at least 9 hours every night, which I did. So I'm happy about myself for doing that. But the thing is, I had to sacrifice my social time, which kind of delayed my development of making new friends. I mean, the good thing was I knew some people already, so I wasn't really too worried about just being alone. Plus, I had my track team, I have my track friends too, who are also my friends in general, so that helps. I don't have to go to parties or whatever to socialize. Ooh, parties. You don't have to go to parties to socialize. I think it's more just being able to join clubs and socialize with other people that way. That was a thing I just couldn't do. Another thing I sacrificed was being on my phone. Like, I barely touched it. I barely was on the apps until I started creating content. Then that kind of forced me to be more on the apps, which sucked because sometimes I don't like to be on the app, but I have to like post or check up on things, which, you know, leads to doom scrolling. But I know when I was in high school, senior year, when I wasn't creating content, the nicest thing to do for me was just to delete all the social media, because like when I wake up, I don't have to look at it, and you know, it's nice. It could be a social media detox if you want to label it as that, but it was nice to not worry about anything else. You don't have to catch up on anybody. If it was a real friend, right, they'll just text you or call you. You don't have to keep sending posts or reels to each other. You just call, text. I think that's the most optimal way to have contact with your friends. But if you're creating content like me, it's going to be hard to be off social media. But if you don't want to create content and you just have a random account, I just say delete it. You don't really need it. If it was a real person, ask for their number and then have conversations over there. But yeah, no social media. Social media can really hijack your brain. But anyways, when I sacrificed my phone or social media in general, I was able to get 9 hours of sleep. I've also made a sacrifice video up here if you're wondering what you need to sacrifice and if it's good to sacrifice it in general. Of course, if you want to be a mediocre athlete or student, you don't have to follow this advice, but I know you don't want to be that because you're here watching my videos. Like I always say, time is limited. Everybody has the same 24 hours, but what differentiates people is what they do in those 24 hours. Thank you for making it this far in this video. If you like this video, give it a like, subscribe, leave a comment down below what you think and what other time management skills you think should be included. Remember this, be intentional, go improve it. Prove it to the haters and to yourself. You can become great.